Hi, you're very welcome to this 30 minutes of Excel goodness. And today I am focusing on pivot tables, or also as I call them, my Excel snacks. Now, I will send you on the file that I have afterwards and the PDF of the PowerPoint. So, if you're at a loss for something to do at the weekend, I'm sure what could be more fun than a pivot table, let's face it. All right. So, let us begin. Okay. So, uh, this is going to be, like I said, it's a pivot table, not a pivot. It is 30 minutes of Excel goodness. So it's not a pivot table. No, that's not that kind of table. Definitely not that. And it's not that one, that series of friends where he's yelling pivot, bring the couch up. Okay, no, it's not that either. But it is something that looks a little bit like that. A nice, tidy little table that summarizes big chunks of your data and makes it a nice little Rubik's cube. Okay, there we go. Nice little tick there as well. So, for those of you who don't know me, a little bit about me, also known as the Excel Lady. That's the name, as I always say, other people gave me. It's not the name I picked myself. I live in the west of Ireland, where today it is raining. Surprise, surprise. All right. As my husband is going a bit cracked because he was planning to go on the bog and cut some turf, and now it's raining. I have a website called theexcellady.com. I'm a freelance trainer. This is what I do. Also written books on Excel, your Excel Survival Kit, which gone to the second edition. That one there. Also, my two latest books, Hate Excel, Learn to Love the Software That Can Transform Your Confidence and Career, and they're both Amazon bestsellers. They're still kind of lingering around there somewhere. All right, there we go. And the workbook to go with it. Now, I have a number of books with Bookboon, and they've given them back to me this year. So if you go looking for them on Bookboon, you won't find them, as I discovered last night. Um, but hopefully, I'm going to kind of repurpose them, update them, and that kind of stuff, and put them under my own banner. Well, not my banner, but the people that I publish the Hate Excel books with. Right. And those of you who know me know that I love movies and I love puns and I love crime fiction. Yeah, absolutely. And married a long time. And we have one son who is a software engineer. And yes, you can blame his mother's side of the family for that. All right. I just spent 5 minutes there trying to find a file for my husband on his laptop because he's not, the man can do Sudoku, the difficult levels of Sudoku, but finding a file on the computer is, sometimes a bit of a stretch for him. Lovely. If you are, if you're on LinkedIn, please do connect me on the link there. But in the file, you'll find links if you want to contact me or whatever. That's up to you. Okay. So a little bit about what we're going to cover in this session. Basically, what is a pivot table and what would you do with it and how would you do it? Okay. And also just some other stuff as well. It has been recorded and it's going to be sent out afterwards with the file. And also I'll be running a few more of these between now and the end of the year. And you'll find the link for those. It's if you go to my website, you find it under free webinars. Okay. And if it points, I'll probably pause at points and I'll be keeping an eye on the chat as well. Okay, this is what a pivot table does with data. It takes something that looks like this and converts it into something that looks a bit like this. However, as that little bit of small print you have at the bottom of all the advertisements you have may have side effects, may not apply to you, etc., may not be a 100% accurate representation of what happens to your data. Yes, doesn't literally turn it into gold. Although they do say that data is the new oil. So before you begin, when you're dealing with a pivot table, okay, it assumes that all your data would be in one location in one table. And if it's not, you'll either have to use formulas or something else to make sure all your pivot table data is in one location. Now, you can combine it from multiple locations via a thing called the data model, but I'm probably not going to cover that today, but just for your own kind of thing, there is a thing called the data model that allows you to combine them without the use of VLOOKUPs or XLOOKUPs. Okay. It assumes your data is clean and normalized. Okay. And that's a thing, that one there. And what does that mean? Okay. It means no blank rows, no blank columns, consistent data entry, single celled headings, and no totals. Okay, so if you get it like an accounting dump from an external source, they often have lots and lots of blank rows and columns. And accounting dumps generally, they do love their subtotals, or as I find myself calling them sometimes, subtitles. Okay, but they do love them, so that's part of your removal thing on it. So just some common uses. It summarizes and miniaturizes your data. So do you need to see the total sales by county, area, country? Use a pivot table. Do you need to see the sales for a product analyzed by time and category? Use a pivot table. And do you need to see the total sales analyzed by customer and area? You've guessed it, use a pivot table. So if you are a pivot table newbie, okay, and you haven't got, wait for it, a Scooby-Doo, there we go. All right. A good idea is to allow Excel to recommend a pivot table to you, and that's insert and recommend a pivot table. And another thing I want to show you today, which I think is quite cool, but it's not available on every version of Excel, is a thing called Analyze Data as well. Okay, so insert and recommend a pivot table. If you're more experienced, do it from scratch. So we're going to have a look at the Analyze Data feature on your table. You'll find it under the Data ribbon. It used to be on the Home ribbon, but then they moved it to the Data ribbon as well. And I'm just going to do that first, and then I'm just going to come back to the structure of it then. If any questions or comments, please do pop them in the chat as we go along. All right. And share my screen again. Okay, so I've got a data set here, and this is, as I say, one I prepared earlier. I always love saying that. I don't know why, but I do. Right. And, control arrow down, there's about maybe just over 1,400, not 1,400, but 1,100 records in it, and it's consistent. So what I'm going to do first of all is, if you convert it to a table, it makes it easier to manage. So click on one cell in it. Don't do this thing where people select the entire thing, and then you go away for 2 cups of tea while Excel grinds through it. Just click a cell in the data set, because Excel will kind of know if your data set correctly, and then come up here to insert. And then I'm just going to go to table, and then I click OK. All right, and it converts it into a table. And then the thing I want to show you then is I want to show you the data. And I'm going to come over here to Analyze Data. Now, the thing about the Analyze Data is that you need to bear in mind that if your data set is more than 100,000 records, the wheels do come off the wagon. Okay, so it doesn't, unless it's updated recently, and Microsoft do that a lot, that it won't work, and then you come back a week later and it does. But recently, up until recently, you're looking at 100,000 records. It's kind of its limit. So click on Analyze Data. And what it does, if you look over here on the right-hand side, is that it kind of takes a bit of an educated guess as to what it thinks I might need. Okay. Now, some of them are a bit, they've gone on a phase recently of kind of looking for the average. But for example, I could say, let's see what it gives me here. Distribution of customer by county. Okay, and that's not too bad, actually. So it tells me a breakdown of the customers. Or I might go here and I say value. Clear that one here. And I'm going to say total value by classification. And you use the headings that are in the data set. That's how you get the best result. That's not bad, actually. See, it's given me an instant kind of pivot chart on that one. So if you use the terms in the data set, it's not too bad. Okay. The other one then you can go to is, I'm going to come up here to insert, and then I'm just going to go to recommended pivot tables. Okay. So if you're brand new to pivot tables, you haven't seen them before, those would be the 2 things I'd recommend. Have your data set up properly, choose data, analyze data, assuming you have it. If you don't have it, go to plan B, recommended pivot tables. And there, you see that it gives me, let's say, sum of value by this one. And then I click OK. And this gives me an instant pivot table. Now, when I create a pivot table here, see that it fires up this thing called the field list. Okay, and that's what we're just going to look at next. Now, I'm going to mention one other thing because it's one I like to mention. but then and then I kind of forget to do it. So I just want to do it now while it's roaming around my brain. So if you come up here to File, and if I go down here to New, all right, you'll see down there, see there it gives you like a pivot table tutorial. Okay. And there's a whole bunch of other kind of handy templates that are there as well, which they're, in all fairness to them, they're always updating. So I could just have a quick, might have a look at the personal. So it gives me, see there, household to-do list, mileage tracker, schedule planner, etc., etc. All right, but you'll find that under File and New. So just bear that in mind. Okay, now let me just go back here into this one. Okay. Now I know not every organization has the analyzed data in it, but if you have it, I just think it could be, handy for like ad hoc inquiries. Now, a few minutes ago, we had a look at the fields list. Okay, that's the underlying structure of your pivot table. Okay, and it's kind of, there's two halves here. The top half has the headings from your data, and in the bottom half, you have this kind of grid. So what you want to do is whatever you want calculated, that's what you put into your values. Okay. Now, if you put a number in there, Excel will automatically sum it. That's its default. If you put a text entry in there, Excel will automatically count it. And every now and then you come across a thing where you put a number in there and it seems to do something weird, which is that it kind of does a count on it. And that's normally because you might have one entry in it that just has is text, and it will just kind of default the whole thing to a count entry. The columns, okay, up here. All right, it seems at the moment it just seems to have a mind of its own, and that's fine. So the columns, whatever you put into the columns, okay, they'll be the headings from left to right. All right. And I found a useful way to remember the columns is that they map to the columns in your spreadsheet. So a column in your spreadsheet goes from left to right, A to B. Oh, there we go. Okay. So it goes from A to B, left to right. So if you want your headings, whatever headings you want to go into left to right in your pivot table, you throw them into your columns. You then have your rows. So whatever you want to go on the left-hand side of your pivot table, you put it into your rows. And again, rows kind of map to the rows in your spreadsheet. Rows are on the left-hand side, going from 1 to over 1 million. And then if you want to filter down the results, for example, sometimes people only want to they don't want to see any null values or any blank values or any zero values. They can use the filter to remove that. Or you only want to see the values for certain things, use the filter to remove that. Okay. Okay, now let me just go back here again to this one. We go here. All right. Okay, so I've got my data set here. Okay, here we go. And now for those of you that are interested, if you notice down here, I said vegetable sales instructions. So if any of you kind of like want to use the data set to practice on, there's 3 examples. There's 2 examples of pivot tables there. Okay. So I'm going to go up to this one and I'm going to click on the data set and I'm going to go up here to table design. And then I'm going to summarize the pivot table. And at this point, then I can choose, do I want to put on a new worksheet, which is the default, or an existing worksheet? Now, if you have a largest data set, like I have here, generally what's recommended is that you put your pivot tables on a separate worksheet. Okay, so you kind of, if your data set is only small, probably put the whole lot together. By and large, anything that's kind of like over, I think over a couple of hundred, really, in my opinion, I'd put it on a separate worksheet. So I would go to this one and I click OK. Right. Now, then I come over here and let's say, for example, I want to see this broken down by classification. I'm going to put that into rows, appears on the left-hand side. I want to put my value into the amount into my values. And let's say I want to get it broken down by county. And there we have it there then. Okay, so there I have all my different counties. That's my first pivot table there. Now you will find occasionally, and I don't know, it's kind of one of these weird things, is that you click on the pivot table and you don't see your fields list actually, as it's happened there. So if that happens, what you need to do is you need to click in the pivot table, go up here to pivot table analyze, and then just come over here to field list. I don't know why it is, but every now and then it just won't do that. Okay. Now I want to add a chart to this. So again, now if you just remember that everything you need is going to be up here in the pivot table analyze. And I just come down here to pivot chart. And again, I have noticed that every now and then, I don't know why, pivot chart will disappear. I don't know why, but it does. It's there today. Click on the pivot chart. And I would probably maybe choose a bar chart. Okay. And we got my charts here. I click on this one. Now, with the charts, then what I can do is I can go back into my pivot table and I'm going to add a slicer and a timeline. Okay, so a slicer is, as was once described to me by a participant in a course, a fancy filter. And I always thought, and it's a bit marmitey. People are either like, that's fantastic, or else, eh. So you decide for yourself if it's useful to you or not. Click in the pivot table analyze, and then I can go insert slicer. Okay, and let's say I want to be able to see this by customer. So I click on customer and then I click OK. And then I have my different customers here. And what I could do then is I could insert it, just do Control+, click on my customer, and I just want to make this horizontal as opposed to vertical. So I come here to slicer, and I'm just going to put in the number of columns, maybe make it a 5, and then click OK. Yep, there we go. And then I would resize that then. Now, if I want to color that, I come up here to my slicer, and let's say I might make it that nice light green. So just click on that green there. And then I want to get this to match. Click here. And this time you go up to design. And then you can choose one of the presets here. Okay. So if you add that, like, you can kind of customize this, but to be honest with you, I'd maybe start with seeing if it's something there already. And you can choose them then. And then I can use the slicer then. See there, Groucho, Kinvara sales. This one. Let's say Galway products. And then I can just clear my filter up here then. There we go. And if I want to change the color of that, I can come over here to my little paintbrush. I could say color, maybe go for a more greeny color. Yes, because, I like green, but there we go. Yeah, green. And that's it there. If I want to format the numbers, the quickest way to format the numbers, do a right click, value field settings, down to number format, and then I can choose, for example, currency, and then click OK. And then we go OK on it, and then we have it. Okay, let's see now. If I want to add a timeline, all right, now a timeline is like a slicer, but for, you'll never believe this, time. So I click in the pivot table. I'm going to do it from the field list this time. So I just come up here to pivot table analyze. And then I put on my field list, which is decided now that it's definitely not going to play. Okay. Now, if I do a right click down here on my invoice date, see there, invoice date, I can say add as timeline. Okay, so that can be another handy little trick there. There we go. And I will just do my little formatting on that as well. And again, maybe Control+. And again, I can just move this up if I wanted to. Right. So then what I could do then is I could say, okay, let's see. There's March 2024. There's April, May, there's my sales there. And then I want to clear all those as well. Okay, and clear that one. So I just use the design on it. Okay, lovely. All right, now there's a couple of other things. We have about say 8 or 9 minutes left. There's a few other things I want to show you, which I think are always useful. Anybody else? Anybody got any questions? If you want to pop in the chat or come off mute just for a second, I'll just stop the share for a moment. I'll show you the other things. Okay, no problem. All right, let me just share my screen here again. So I'm going to do a different pivot table this time because I want to show you something else. So I'm just going to go back to my vegetable sales. Come up here to table design, summarize a pivot table, new worksheet. And let's say what I'm going to do is this time I'm going to do, let's say by product. And first I'm going to do by county. I'll do by classification this time. And I'm going to do my value. Now, if I kind of want to see what percentage breakdown these were of the different ones, I could either do it directly from the pivot table, or else I can go to value again here. When if I add in value a second time to my pivot table, and I come here to sum of value 2, and I'm going to call this show values as, because this is quite a good thing on it. Show values as, and I do a right click, show values as, and then it comes down here to, see there it says show values as. So this is just different ways to present the same data. So I'm going to choose, I'm going to do 3 or 4 of them, no more than that. Percentage of grand total, and see there, that gives me the percentage breakdown. If I take all the sales, if I take all the sales, etc. I have no idea why that's giving me a thumbs up. I don't remember pressing that. Okay. All the sales and so on. And you could also go up here to home, conditional formatting, and go to data bars and add a little green bar here. And then if I do the little dot beside it, all cells showing. Right. So that's kind of another nice little visual indicator you can use on that. I'm going to do a right click again, show values as. This time I'm going to choose of column total. Okay. Now you can see here, what it does is that this total adds up to 100%. So for each one of these food, like this grouping food, okay, you can see there, this basically is the percentage breakdown of, the sales of food under that particular thing, or let's say under services, that one. I can do a right click again, show values as. I'm just going to do row total. And this time it's going to see there, it's going to show you the 100% going across from left to right. That's the rows there then. So it gives you the analysis that way. Now I'm just going to change this, and I'm going to amend my data set values. And I'm just going to put down my invoice date here for a second because I want to show you something else. Okay, and I'm going to just, all I'm going to show is I just want to show the years. I'm just going to deselect those, and then I'm going to put in my value here. Okay. Now I'm going to put down value again because what I want to show you is how you could show the change from one year to the next. And then I'm just going to rename this again as show values as. Okay. And I do a right click. And I'm going to show values as again. And this time, see where it says difference from. Okay. So down here, this one, difference from. So just a right click, show values as, and then difference from. Okay, now this pops up. So you kind of have a base field and a base item. Now my base field is going to be the years because I want to show the change in years, all right, going across. And when I go to base item, it gives me a number of choices around the years, but I just wanted to show the previous. Okay, I want to just look at the previous, and then I click OK. Okay, and you can see there, it shows the change. So if I come down here and go equals 2024 minus sum of value, it says 61012, which is this value here. And then if I do a right click again, show values as, and it says percentage difference from. Same thing again, I'm going to, from my base field, I'm going to choose my years because I want to show the change across the years. I'm going to leave it on previous. And then I click OK. Right. Okay. And then you can see there, it then just comes up with these percentages on it, big jump in percentages. Now, if I don't want to see the null, okay, I always find it a bit amusing why in Excel there's always an exclamation mark, a bit dramatic in all its error messages. I can come up here to pivot table analyze, go to my options, go to my options. So you can almost think of it like POO, pivot table options. And for error values here, click down on this one, error values, and I'm just going to put down a 0. Now I know 0 is not the same as null, but for our purposes today, it will be as that one. Okay. So see there, that gives me the total percentage change. And again, to add to it, I go to home, conditional formatting. I might just choose color scales this time. Choose this one. This is again is worth kind of experimenting with an all cells showing. Okay. So you can see there where there's been a big increase, it's given it green, and where there's been a drop, as you can see, it's given it kind of a red color. If you want to remove it, go here to conditional formatting, clear rules from this pivot table. All right, there we go. Okay, lovely people. That's just 2 minutes left. I just want to see, has anybody got any questions or comments before we wrap it up? Thanks, Olivia. You're welcome. I love me a pivot table, so I do. Okay, that's fine. If you do, you'll have my email address if you want to drop me a note. Yeah, okay, great. You're very welcome. If you have any other questions, just drop me a note. The recording probably going out tomorrow because Zita's not around today. So probably, and the PDF of the things would be going out as well. Right. And if you think of anything else that would be useful to know, just let me know. Okie dokie, lovely people. I will maybe or not see another one, but if not, thank you very much for that. You're all very welcome. All right. Okay. Mind yourselves. All right. And take care.